Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. My name's Toby Longhurst, and joining me in conversation today is Associate Professor Amanda Gordon. Amanda is the Director of Armchair Psychology, and leading up to Are You OK Day, she's going to speak to us today about suicide prevention. Amanda, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Toby.
Now, listeners in Australia will be familiar with Are You OK Day. It's been running for many years, and it's a great initiative that helps to facilitate people starting some of those awkward conversations in the aid of suicide prevention. That's coming up tomorrow. How important are these conversations, Amanda?
Look, they're really important conversations because any conversation where we're connecting with the other can be the one that makes the difference. We know from all the research, forensic research, working with people who were going to commit suicide, who in fact had written notes and were really ready to commit suicide and then didn't, we know that those people will say that the reason they didn't in the end kill themselves was because of some connection. Someone rang or someone knocked on the door or someone just spoke to them, connected with them and let them know that they were caring about them and that they really were concerned that they were okay. So we know that we can really intervene and make a difference.
Are you okay is such a simple question, but I get the feeling if somebody came and asked you, are you okay, almost on autopilot would just say, yeah, I'm fine, no worries, not a problem.
That's right.
What is a better way to be bringing up a conversation that could potentially be quite an awkward one to bring up?
Well, look, for health professionals, it's in a way easier because you've got someone captive in your office, I guess, and you're going to say, how are you feeling today? It's really important that health professionals who are working mainly with the body make it clear that they're also willing to hear how the mind is functioning. So how you're feeling today opens up the possibility of that conversation that could be lost if it was just, how are you? Are you okay is still better than saying nothing if you're just just generally. But for health professionals, we have the opportunity to go much further.
For health professionals, I'd imagine most doctors and obviously psychologists and psychiatrists have the appropriate training. For allied health and other doctors and other health professionals, if they are seeing signs and they are concerned, what specifically can they do to help people to take a next step?
I think the most important thing is connection. So by reaching out and letting the person know that you're aware that sometimes life is tough, sometimes things are tough, but there's always hope. There's always an opportunity to make things better. There's always an opportunity to make things right. We can be just lifting the veil, perhaps, just enough that that person can see that there might be a way through. Because people suicide when they lose hope, when they can't see any way through whatever is going on, or if they believe that nothing will ever be better than it is now. You know, if this is all that life is, if this is the way I'm going to feel, then maybe life isn't worth living. And when we talk to them, when we reach out, when we connect, when we say there are ways through this, there are possibilities of making a different place for ourselves in the world, that can be enough to help people take the chance. You know, perhaps grab back some hope, if only briefly, to try to make a difference.
Now, I know, sadly, from my own personal experiences, I've known people who've taken their own lives, like most of us will at some point in our lives. And there's this awful feeling you get afterwards. Aside from the loss, it's, if only I'd known. Are there things that we can look out for that are giveaway signs, that perhaps ones that might not be so obvious?
When people talk about life not being worth living, listen to them. Listen to the fact that they might feel that they're worthless or that they contribute nothing to society, and support them in seeing the importance that they have in your life. One of the key things that we know people do is they can give things away. If they start giving gifts, especially of treasured items, be aware that that's often very predictive of an attempt on their own life. Say I was speaking to some parents recently of a 14-year-old boy who killed himself, and the night before he went back to his dad and he just said to him, oh, Dad, you gave me this $50 earlier in the day and I didn't need it after all, and gave it back. And his dad laughed and said, you didn't have to give it back. You'd have got away with keeping that. No, I want to give it back to you, Dad. And if only that had been the telltale sign that in hindsight it was. Not that we don't want our kids to be honest and to give things back to us, but be aware that if people are handing things over as if they have no use for these possessions, then that could be because they really believe they have no use for these possessions.
Now, we know that rates of suicide vary amongst ethnicity, amongst age, geographic location, culture. Do the signs that people give off change across those different variants as well?
They probably do, and I'm not going to pretend expertise across all cultures. There is no doubt that a change in activity level, either becoming frenetic and excitable or becoming withdrawn, is the thing to be aware of. It's the change rather than whether they are always withdrawn. So someone who's always withdrawn isn't necessarily suicidal, but if they've always been very excited and engaged and warm, and then they withdraw and seem sad and reluctant to engage, that would be a danger sign. So within cultures, it's still the shift in behaviour that would worry a professional person rather than the specifics of the event.
While we're talking about demographics, is there any current information that you know of that you can share with us about who is most at risk?
We know during this time of terrible drought that farmers, the people living in rural communities, especially men in their middle age, seem to be particularly vulnerable right now. And it's back to this idea of they have no value, they can't provide for their family, and there's no sign of things improving in the future. And again, it's a matter of working on this idea of hope, working on this idea of you yourself being of value to me now, even though right now you can't provide in the way you did previously, that we can all work together as a team and share roles and make things better. That's going to make a difference. We've always known that young people are particularly vulnerable, and I think the reason that that's so is that as adults we tend to see the possibilities in our future most of the time. But for adolescents, the world is pretty black or white. It's either fabulous and engaging and engaged and there's so much going to happen, or it's black and terrible and there's nothing. And when kids get stuck in the black and terrible and nothing for too long, and too long, unfortunately, doesn't have to be a very long time, that can lead to suicidal behaviour because they don't have that history of coming through a bad time and seeing that the world can become colourful again. And we have to get them through the hard time and let them see that feeling badly and having life crash down on us isn't a constant state, but is something that varies and moves, and the world is like that to some extent, and it will become joyful again. And if they can experience that once or twice or three times, they can then become more resilient and survive the hard times.
For teenagers in particular, a lot of adults find it difficult to speak with teenagers at the best of times. How can we bring up these type of conversations with people who often don't want to talk and express their emotions to you?
Yeah, look, there are a number of things. For health professionals, often teenagers are sort of dragged in to see you by their parent or another caring person, and they really are reluctant to speak. So you sometimes have to do a bit of the speaking for them. And the speaking for them is about, sometimes things can be pretty hard, but there are people who are here to listen, and there are plenty of people who care, and giving those messages, giving them things that they can take away with them that are reminders that there is help available and that life gets better than this. It's not always this hard and not always this bad. And that's the key. Sometimes, though, teenagers are ready to talk, and it takes very little. I remember this 16-year-old who was brought in to me by his mother, and she thought that he was struggling at school because of schoolwork. But the minute she left the room, he told me about his concerns, and his struggles were really about his concerns for his sexuality, which in fact resolved over the months and years that I knew him. But there was a suicide attempt in the middle of the work that I did with him when it felt hopeless, and he felt like he couldn't talk to anyone else. And so it's really important that the lines of communication are kept open, that you urge parents not to, try and cajole words out of their kids, but continue to show their kids constantly that they're available and open if they do want to talk, and that the kids don't have to talk about the specifics that are worrying them, but together there are strategies and solutions we can help them find for their future. And always talk about futures, that things get better, rather than, these are the best days of your life, school days are the great days. Well, they're not. Often for kids, they're a great struggle, very hard to get through.
When we have these conversations, just listening is such an important step. What's the next step? Where can people go to get the help that they need?
Look, there are a number of things, and doctors who are listening, GPs, would know that they can write a mental health care plan and send people to kids and adults, to a psychologist as appropriate. If it's more urgent and they can't get into a psychologist immediately, although generally people like me keep 1 or 2 sessions available so that we can see someone in a crisis. There's Lifeline, there's Beyond Blue, there are lots of helplines. There's the local mental health crisis team that is available and accessible for mental health professionals to call if they're concerned. There's the emergency department of your local hospital. We're not alone. We as health professionals can ring each other and talk to each other and say, I'm concerned, what shall I do? No GP will turn a physio away. If the physio rings and says, I'm concerned about a patient of yours, is there anything that I can do to help? We'll work together as a team to make sure we support people through the difficult crisis times.
Now, just finally, are there any pieces of advice that you would give people who are concerned? Suicide amongst doctors is really quite high, alarmingly high.
Very high. Yes.
What advice can you give to doctors that might think that they, I don't want to say, maybe I will say, sometimes that the ego might get in the way, that they feel that they can't reach out to help because of their position?
I think doctors need to know that we all understand that medicine is a very stressful profession, holding people's lives in your hands, having to deal with difficult people, having to deal with people when you're sorting out emotional from psychological, from physical problems, can leave you exhausted and drained. Psychologists have ongoing peer supervision throughout their professional lives. We know that it's vital to prevent burnout and to protect us that we actually have the support of our colleagues. I think often doctors are left pretty alone in the work that they do, and just a joke in a lunchroom or sharing lunch, isn't enough. And you need to be able to talk about the impact on you of the work that you're doing. There are psychologists like me who work very closely with the medical profession and have a lot of medicos who come to see us to protect themselves and to build resilience and to work out whether it's time even for a break, even for a week or so, just to sort yourself out so it's ready to go back refreshed and enriched and ready to move forward. So don't be shy. Understand that psychologists understand how stressful medicine is, and we respect absolutely the privacy needs and the particular needs of health professionals working with their patients, so that you can go back and do the best job you can do.
That's great advice. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us. We're quickly running out of time, but it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Good to talk with you, Toby. I hope it's been helpful.
Very much so. If you've just joined us on Health Professional Radio, you've just missed my conversation with the Director of Armchair Psychology, Amanda Gordon, who's been discussing suicide prevention strategies by having more conversations and seeking help. The good news, however, is that you can find this full interview on our website, along with all of our other interviews, on our website, hpr.fm. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. My name is Toby Longhurst, and you've been listening to Health Professional Radio.
Thank you for listening to Health Professional Radio. We're very proud to be an independent broadcaster providing our content free of charge to you, the listener. One of the ways that we're able to remain free and independent is by having people like you become patrons. You can support Health Professional Radio simply by visiting hpr.fm and clicking the button that says Become a Patron. Your patronage of even just $1 a month lets us know that you're there, which in turn makes us more valuable to advertisers. And, of course, if you're able to afford more, then we would certainly appreciate the support. My name is Toby Longhurst from Health Professional Radio. Please visit hpr.fm, click the Become a Patron button, and support us if you can.